Hi, everyone. My name is Don Zancanella, and I'm coming to you from Boise, Idaho. I'll be reading the beginning of my story, Feed Them, Across the Threshold. Trina Callahan of Boise, Idaho is in her third year of teaching when she applies to an exchange program. To her delight, she receives an invitation to spend the year at Leighton Middle School in the town of Leighton Buzzard, northwest of London. She's always lived with her parents, even while in college. Now she'll get to visit a new country and have a place of her own. The process of relocating turns out to be surprisingly easy. She goes online and finds a place to live, packs efficiently, and says goodbye to her friends. Upon landing in London, she sails through customs and immigration, figures out what bus to take from Heathrow, and as she steps across the threshold of her new apartment, feels herself being transformed from an unsophisticated American who's never quite stopped being a teenager into a grown-up citizen of the world. The following day, she goes to the school and asks to see the head teacher. A call is put into the office, and a tall, silver-haired woman named Mrs. May appears. The Cedars. Mrs. May has her sign some papers and then takes her on a tour. They look at the art room, the lunch room, and the great hall, which appears to be a sort of gymnasium where large gatherings can be held. Trina is surprised to see that despite an exterior of weathered gray stone and gables, the school is quite modern inside. It reminds her of a Target store, chilly fluorescent lighting, and an overuse of primary colors, especially cherry red. Next, they go outside and cross the parking lot to a large three-story structure that looks like a Georgian mansion. Mrs. May calls it the Cedars and informs Trina that her classroom will be on the second floor. Unlike the first building, this one is antique inside as well as out. They climb a wide oak staircase with a curving banister and then continue down a dim hallway until Mrs. May stops and opens a door. It's love at first sight: high ceilings, hardwood floors and wainscoting, a beautiful desk, tall windows that look down on playing fields surrounded by stately trees. What a gorgeous room, Trina says. This building is actually somewhat famous. Did you ever read a children's book called The Borrowers? Mary Norton, the woman who wrote it, spent part of her childhood here. Apparently she used this house as a model for the one in her book. Seriously? I adore The Borrowers. As you may expect, says Mrs. May, there's a good deal of talk among teachers and students alike about elves and such living in the walls. I suppose it's all right as long as it doesn't get out of hand. Similar but different. That night she emails her parents. The school looks like it's straight out of Masterpiece Theater. The head mistress reminds me of Judi Dench. And my apartment, which I shall henceforth call my flat, is within walking distance of the school. I can't wait to meet my students. The building where I'll be teaching is where the famous children's book, The Borrowers, was set. The next day she returns and begins organizing her classroom. She's brought with her a large map of Idaho, which she hopes British children will find intriguing, a print of Van Gogh's vase with sunflowers, and a poster of dancing cats. Her students in Boise thought the cats were hilarious, and with any luck, these will too. That week she explores Leighton Buzzard. When she'd first heard the name, she'd laughed. It sounded like something out of Monty Python. It turns out to be a quaint little town combined with a commuter suburb for people who work in London. At a newsstand, she buys a magazine she's never heard of, and at a bakery, a pastry called a Chelsea bun. She even discovers a large Walmart-like store called Tesco, where she wanders the aisles for an hour or more, fascinated by how things can be similar to what she's accustomed to and different at the same time. The game. Once school begins, it doesn't take long for her to conclude that British children are much like their American counterparts. They have the same energy, they're passionate about music and celebrities, and like her students back in Boise, are intensely interested in her personal life. Miss, are you married? Not yet. Is there someone you fancy? That wouldn't be any of your business now, would it? Said with a raised eyebrow and a knowing smile. By the end of her first month in Leighton Buzzard, she's decided that her decision to participate in the exchange was a good one. Her classes are going well, she's found a friend in Liz Martin who teaches math, and she spent the entire Saturday by herself in London, overwhelmed by all there is to do and see. She likes the students so much, she doesn't even mind when something of hers goes missing. Indeed, she's rather pleased. If she'd spent the year teaching in the house of the borrowers, and her students had never borrowed anything from her, she'd have felt left out. The item they choose is her orange Boise State coffee mug. If nothing else, the incident will make a good story to tell when she gets back to Idaho. Then my cup went missing, and I knew the borrowers were at work. Stop there. Thanks to everyone for participating in this event. Bye.